Okay, so today we're going to pick up with India and get into some of the religious part of India. We're going to be looking at Hinduism and Buddhism and how it develops in India. So, we're going to start off with Hinduism, and Hinduism is a religion of a lot of unity and diversity. So, it kind of seems like they're butting heads, unity where everybody's one, but diversity because everybody's different. But it really does work with Hinduism. It is a religion of unity and diversity. So we'll start with the beginning. Hinduism has no single founder. There's not one person that starts it. It just kind of develops. There's no single sacred text. They don't have like a Bible. They don't have a Torah. They don't have a Quran or anything. They don't have one single thing. There's multiple different things that they look at. But how Hinduism develops is that it grew out of overlapping beliefs. That there were multiple polytheistic religions that kind of grew on top of one another, and so they decided, well, rather than learning all these different ones, let's just combine them all together, and that's basically what they do. And so Hinduism is very, very complex. You have, I think the last count was somewhere in the neighborhood of 33 million gods and goddesses, something like that. It is a lot of gods and goddesses that they have. And so they really kind of adhere to this idea. It's an ancient proverb that the Hindus have, is that God is one, but wise people know it by many names. And so rather than trying to know all of God, you know parts of God kind of thing. And all these gods and goddesses are part of that overlying system. So, what they truly believe in is the Brahman, and the Brahman is this unchanging, all-powerful spiritual force that is out there, and it's too complex for the human mind to understand, and so instead they pick pieces of it. They pick parts of it that they worship as gods, so that way you can worship a part of it, but you're not ever going to know the whole thing. You're going to know pieces of it, and those gods give it shape. The most important gods of the Hindu religion are Brahma, and Brahma is the creator god. He makes things. And then you have Vishnu, who is the preserver, trying to preserve life. And then you have Shiva, who is the destroyer. So you have these three major gods. There's many, many others, but those are the three main ones. The goal of life for Hindus is to know your Atman, and Atman is your essential self, to basically look at yourself, to know yourself kind of thing, to know who you are and what you stand for. And that once you have achieved Atman, once you know your essential self, then you can have moksha. And moksha is not a coffee drink. Moksha is a union with the Brahman, that all-powerful spiritual force out there. So that's your ultimate goal, is to become one and to unite with the Brahman. Well, how do you do that? Well, you free yourself of selfish desires for like money and nice clothes and education and all that kind of stuff. You no longer want selfish desires. And for the Hindus, they believe that this cannot happen in one lifetime, that it takes several lifetimes to learn how to do this. And so they believe in reincarnation. And reincarnation is the rebirth of the soul after you're dead into another form, that you come back as something else. So, reincarnation, how does that work? Well, the Hindus believe in two concepts, karma and dharma. Karma are the actions of a person's life that affect their fate in the next one. And so if you have good karma, you're going to come back as something better. If you have bad karma, you're going to come back as something worse, kind of thing. And so for them, they say that humans are the closest to Brahman, because that's probably the best you can get. And then the next level down is animals, and then plants, and then objects. So when you have good karma, you move up, and when you have bad karma, you move down the ladder, because as you move down, there's more likelihood for you to have suffering, and through suffering, you learn how to be better, basically. So to escape this, it's important that you follow dharma. And dharma are your religious and moral duties, things that you are supposed to do. Now, your dharma is going to vary according to what class you are, according to what job you have, according to your gender, your age. All of those things are going to have an impact on what your dharma should be, what you have to be doing at that point in your life. And so there is a Dharma Sutra, and a Dharma Sutra is the law codes for all the levels. And so you could always go and look it up and see what you're supposed to be doing at a particular point in your life. But basically, the Dharma says that there's 4 stages of life that you start out as a student. As a young person, you are learning everything. So as a student, you're learning how to be who you are. And then once you move out of your parents' home and get married, you become a householder. So that's the second stage, is a householder. And you have a family, and you have to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. Once your children move out, then you can become like a hermit. And you basically become just on your own. You're more lonely. And if you think about how people are when they're, when their kids move out, they tend to stay with their own little circle of friends, but they really don't go out and do much more beyond the norm. So you become like a hermit. And then at the end of your life, you become an ascetic. An ascetic is someone who focuses on religion. And if you think about people at the end of their life, when they're in their old age, think about your great-grandparents or your grandparents even, as they are getting to the end of their life. What are they thinking about? They're thinking about the afterlife. They're thinking about the religion, and they want to make sure that things are going to be good for them. And so those are the 4 stages of life according to Hinduism, and it really does look at the realities of society and what it's like. And so, like I said, the 4 ones are student, householder, hermit, and ascetic. The key moral principle of Hinduism is ahimsa. And ahimsa is nonviolence. Basically, that all things should be respected. And so if you respect things, you're going to be closer to achieving that Atman. And once you have your Atman, you can have moksha, which is union with Brahman and all that kind of fun stuff. The extreme form of Hinduism, that ones that take it really to the extreme, because all religions have an extremist form. But the extreme form is Jainism. And Jainism basically says that you kill nothing, that you have such a respect for everything that you don't kill anything. And so there was a commercial a few years back with Kleenex, because Kleenex kills 99% of all germs. And it had this commercial where you had a monk going out with a broom and sweeping the insects off the sidewalk so he didn't accidentally kill any of them. And he's turning a toad over, and then he has to sneeze, so he grabs a Kleenex and he sneezes, and then he realizes that the Kleenex kills 99% of all germs, and he's like, oh, I just killed germs, kind of thing. So, that it's kind of a play on the Jainist view, but Jainism really believes that they should kill nothing. And so they do carry brooms to sweep the insects and animals out of their way so that they don't accidentally kill anything. So that is Hinduism kind of in a nutshell. We didn't get too real in depth into it, but that's basically Hinduism. So the other major form of religion in India is Buddhism. Now, Buddhism was founded by Gautama Buddha, and he's going to be the founder of this new religion. And he is actually a Hindu to begin with. He comes from a high-ranking family, rather sheltered throughout much of his life, and eventually he ventures out of his palatial home, and it's the first time that he sees sick and old and dead people, and it just is a shock to his system. Eventually it overwhelms him, and he leaves his family to discover a realm where there is no suffering and there is no death. And so he leaves his family, and eventually he goes out, and he as he's traveling, he gets really weary, and so he sits down under this tree and he meditates for 48 days there. And when he arises from his meditation, he becomes the enlightened one, because he has seen the light, kind of thing. He has seen the true nature of things, and so he's going to teach others the truth of what he saw. And so his teachings are what will eventually become Buddhism. So the Four Noble Truths are part of that. And the first noble truth is that all life is full of suffering, pain, and sorrow. You just can't escape it. At some point, you're going to have suffering, pain, and sorrow. The second noble truth is that the cause of suffering is the desire for things that are really illusions, such as riches and power and long life and happiness and all that kind of stuff. That the cause of your suffering is the desire for things that really are illusions, that don't really exist. And so the third noble truth is the only cure for this suffering is to overcome your desire. You have to overcome that desire, make yourself better. And the fourth noble truth is that the way to overcome that desire is to follow the Eightfold Path. So, what's the Eightfold Path? Well, the Eightfold Path is basically this list of things that you should do in order to get rid of those desires, to rid yourself of those illusionary things. So, we're going to look at those. The first one is right views, that you have to look at things the right way. And for Buddha, the way to look at things the right way is to embrace Buddhism. Number two is that you have to have the right aspirations or the right intentions or the right thoughts. And that's basically, again, embracing Buddhism. The third is the right speech, that you should never say anything to harm other people, to cause suffering, to cause sorrow. So, right speech. The fourth is the right conduct or the right action. And again, never doing anything to hurt other people. The fifth is the right livelihood, and that just means you need to have the right job. And this is going to be very important with the caste system of what job you should have. The sixth is the right mindfulness, and that's just that you're thinking about things, that you're thinking about what you're doing. The seventh is that you have the right effort, that you're putting in your effort like full-heartedly, that you're not holding anything back. And then number 8 is the right contemplation or the right concentration, that you're thinking about these things. So when we look at these Eightfold Path things, number 1 and 2, like I said, is understanding the Four Noble Truths and committing yourself to Buddhism. Number 3 through 7 is looking at how do you live a moral life, avoiding evil words, evil actions, putting your whole heart into it. And number 8 is looking at meditation, which is going to lead to an enlightened idea that you're going to eventually become just like Buddha, that you're going to become enlightened, you're going to see the truth. So the final goal for Buddhists is to achieve nirvana. No, not the band. To achieve nirvana in Buddhism is a union with the universe. And once you have achieved that union, you are released from the cycle of rebirth. So you do not have to go through any more pain and suffering. So that's kind of the whole goal of this, is to get rid of your pain and suffering. And so once you achieve nirvana, you no longer have that. So that's what you want to get to. And so, as you can see, it shares many beliefs with Hinduism. Buddhism and Hinduism are very, very similar. They both have the idea of karma, of good things and bad things, good karma, bad karma. They both share the idea of dharma, that there's a code that you need to live by. They share this idea of moksha, or union with the all-powerful. They also both believe in reincarnation. And they also both believe in nonviolence, or ahimsa. But there are some differences between Buddhism and Hinduism. Buddhism is going to reject the priests. They don't like all the various different gods and goddesses. You follow Buddhism and not follow Shiva or who's the other ones? Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma and all those. You don't follow them. It gets rid of a lot of the formal rituals. Like I said, they get rid of the existence of many of the Hindu gods, and they also do not like the caste system. The Hindus really embrace it, while the Buddhists not so much. They're not big fans of the caste system. Well, eventually Buddhism is going to spread, especially after the death of Buddha. His followers are going to collect his teachings together into a book called The Three Baskets of Wisdom, and it's kind of like their Bible. It's what they go by. And gradually, Buddhism is going to split into two different forms or schools of thought. You have the Theravada, which very closely follows Buddhist teachings. And really, this is only for Buddhist monks and nuns, because they're the only ones who can devote their lives to that. And so they're the only ones who can really achieve nirvana. And so it's much more strict than the other version. And the other version is called the Mahayana. And the Mahayana is easier for ordinary people. So it's a lighter form, I guess, of Buddhism. And eventually, Buddhism is going to spread to other Asian nations. It'll decline in India, so it's not quite as big as in India is Hinduism. Hinduism is also going to accept Buddhist ideas. Hinduism kind of accepts every religion. They accept everybody. Jesus is one of their gods, so they accept everybody, and Buddha is going to become a god in the Hindu religion. So it's around in some elements and some forms of Hinduism, and there's some pockets of Buddhists that are still in India, but for the most part, Buddhism is going to be exported out to other Asian nations, and Hinduism is going to be the main religion of India.